To the window, to the wall, till the sweat drops down my balls. Until all these bitches crawl. Ah, skeet, skeet, goddamn. Getting crunk in the club she's working. I like to see them females twerking. Taking their clothes off, bucking naked. ATL ho, don't disrespect it. 3, 6, 9, damn she fine. Hoping she can sock it to me one more time. Bring your ass right over here, ho, and let me see you get low. To the window, to the wall, till the sweat drops down my balls. Oh, by golly, skeet, skeet, motherfucker, goddamn. To the window, to the wall, till the sweat drops down my balls. Until all these bitches crawl. Ah, skeet, skeet, goddamn. Getting crunk in the club she's working. I like to see them females twerking. Taking their clothes off, bucking naked. ATL ho, don't disrespect it. 3, 6, 9, damn she fine. Hoping she can sock it to me one more time. Bring your ass right over here, ho, and let me see you get low. To the window, to the wall, till the sweat drops down my balls. Oh, by golly, skeet, skeet, motherfucker, goddamn.
What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologists' claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Tonight, we're going to be covering a supposed contradiction in the Jesus birth narratives. Now, this is going to be Red Pen Logic, Tim Barnett. He is going to be reconciling the two different birth narratives that we have in Matthew and Luke. And so Tim's going to be doing that, and it's responding to Bart Ehrman, who, points out how there's a contradiction in the birth narrative. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We've also got some news to cover. There wasn't much news that happened. The war on Christmas has luckily died down. But we will have some news to cover, and then we're going to get right on into the response video. So, if you want to fuck around and find out how the birth narrative simply cannot be reconciled, then please stay tuned. All right, heathens. Well, if you're new here, you may not know, but any of the super chats, or well, a portion of super chats and any revenue that we make here on the channel from things like the memberships or the super thanks that you can do after the stream posts, we donate a portion of that to charity. This year, I believe we've only been able to donate around $4,000 or $5,000 to charity, but every single month we're looking to donate to good charities. Like we've donated to the Suicide Prevention Hotline, we've donated to the Transgender Law Center, we've donated to a whole bunch of great charities out there this year. And I really want to thank everybody that stops by, watches the videos, watches the streams, contributes during the live stream by sending super chats or becoming members or anything like that. Any way that you've helped in this channel this year, I just want to say that I appreciate y'all so much. And, I hope that we can keep it going for the 2024 year. So this is the last stream of 2023. I know a lot of people like to do like little, flashback or look backs on the year, but I have been playing way too much PS5. I got a PS5 and I got a Meta 3 this year for my Christmas. It's a big spender kind of Christmas, I guess. But I got both of those things. I didn't really get much anything else. But I've been spending a lot of time doing that kind of shit. Huh?
That's untrue.
That's untrue?
Yes. I got you a little
The keypad, an extra hard drive. Yes, I'm just trying to downplay it because it's like I got a Meta 3 and a PS5, and hey, also could you give me money? Do super chats. Anyways, I thoroughly appreciate all of the gifts that I got. It was in no way speaking towards that. Anyways, yeah, so we got some news to cover tonight. We're going to be getting to that. So if you would like to send in a super chat, contribute to either this news segment or in the videos that we're going to cover, because we're going to cover more than just like the one video, because the one video is kind of short, covers hyper specifically one particular thing. And so we're going to be covering, multiple things there. A couple of videos. And so I hope that you guys are ready to get into the news. We don't have, I still haven't made up a custom like intro graphic thing. Honey, where did my ukulele go? Got it. All right, I hope you guys are ready for Today I Learned About Some New Shit That Happened Recently. All right, I hope you guys are ready. I know I am. This new shit is kind of crazy. Oh yeah, in case you're wondering, if you want a heathen shirt that we've been promoting here on the channel, I just put a link in the chat where you can get a heathen pullover or a heathen shirt, and as well, why don't you guys check out the Clips channel, because we started doing a lot of stuff with the Clips channel, and that kind of I had to prioritize some things, so I didn't get that exactly posting as regularly as I wanted to, but hopefully in the new year I'll have time to do that and I can work that out. But so if you guys want to go and check those things out, I just put links in the description there. So all right, now as far as the news goes, hold on, let me get my news notes pulled up. I don't know if y'all know this, but I definitely have to use news notes because I cannot remember all of the news shit that I've got going for us. So okay, now first up on the news, we got this guy who's from our state, honey. Yes, Alabama State Senator Greg Reed, pictured here intently watching a child starve to death while he fantasizes about his AR-15 in his closet, is defending a school that requested help from local churches in exchange for having 15 minutes to force their faith on 50 high school kids. It should surprise nobody that this middle-aged white Christian nationalist either doesn't understand the U.S. Bill of Rights or he's willfully ignoring it like he does Alabama minority communities. He reportedly said, quote, "This week we are celebrating the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. To him goes all the praise and all the glory. That should be our focus, and it should not be interrupted by out-of-state groups trying to push faith out of our lives and the lives of our children." Obviously, this guy doesn't know what pushing someone's faith out of their life actually looks like, when he thinks that just saying, hey, don't push your faith on other people, seems to be saying to him, don't practice your faith. Maybe you should take a harder look at your faith rather than chastise these quote-unquote out-of-state groups. Right, and he's pushing his faith on other people. So fuck you there, Reed. Greg Reed. Senator Greg Reed, fuck you. Anyways, the Freedom from Religion Foundation is providing support for a concerned individual that is directly affected by this blatant raw dogging of their child's basic rights. He also said, quote, "We need more children, not less, to hear the good news of God's saving grace." That's right, honey. It's not fucking up to this asshole right here. So obviously, this poor excuse of a person would rather force Jesus down the throats of children than deal with real issues that Alabamians face, like the fact that the school systems are so fucking underfunded that they have to beg churches for goddamn water and granola bars. That is really fucking sad, isn't it? That's what they were asking for. Water and granola bars for the wrestling team. And apparently they're so underfunded, they had to beg churches for it and trade FaceTime with the kids. Like, that's just sick, in my opinion. All right, so next up on the news, we've got Nikki Haley. Honestly, Nikki Haley always seemed to be at least the worst pick out of the entire Republican bunch until I started hearing, what's that dude's name? Chris Christie? Huh? No, Chris Christie. He's better than Nikki Haley, but he's obviously not going to get, like, picked as the Republican. No. I think it goes Chris Christie, Nikki Haley. And as far as first goes, it's either Ron DeSantis or Ramaswamy. I don't know if Ramaswamy actually beats out DeSantis.
He's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah. Which one would you pick, Ramaswamy or DeSantis for worst?
I think maybe Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy's worse? I could see that. Anyways, this week, Nikki Haley tried to spin the Civil War. Of course, Republican, right? Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley, pictured here daydreaming about forcing people of color to work for little or no money, had a little problem with the cause for the Civil War. Republicans often claim that Joe Biden is not cognitively able to serve as president, but at least he was able to answer this question correctly when he retweeted this bit of news saying it was slavery. This attempted spin of the cause for the Civil War should really just be viewed, so we're going to watch it right now.
What the United States Civil War? Please, what was the cause of the United States Civil War?
I'm just going to go ahead and stop right here. It was slavery. And that's me quoting Joe Biden, this president that's not cognitively able to serve. He at least got this right.
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think
Wait, hold on. This is an easy question. I don't know why she's chastising the questioner about giving her such a hardball question. Is this really a hardball question to ask here? Hey, what caused the Civil War? Unless you're just a total dolt and you're wanting to push your white Christian nationalist agenda, you're obviously going to say slavery.
cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was?
Slavery. And yeah, I guess in a certain light, you could spin it in that direction the way that she did. But at the same time, it was the freedom to own other people as property, which is slavery. It still goes back to slavery, Nikki. I don't care how you try to spin it. It was about the freedoms of people. No, it was about the freedoms of some people to own other people as fucking property.
I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I want to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
You know, that's the best way to answer that particular dumb fucking thing of her to ask the questioner. Like, I'm not running for fucking president. I could say a million of different things right now as far as this answer goes. Only one of them's correct, though. But you're running for president. I want to see if you're cognitively able to actually hold the position of president by being able to answer this simple fucking question.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Okay. Good point. I feel like those things are important, minus the capitalism and maybe some of the other fucking dumb things that she said. But the point is that has nothing to do with the Civil War. You're not, like, the Civil War wasn't trying to provide more freedoms for people. It wasn't trying to provide anything for anybody other than white, rich landowners to own poor black people and other people of color as slaves. That's what it was about, Nikki. You don't have to try to spin all this shit unless you're pandering to a white nationalist audience. Who you pandering to? Because I feel like you're just showing your cards here.
Thank you. And then in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
That it was the cause of the Civil War. That's the entire point of this line of argumentation here. Or not line of argumentation, but this whole questioning, line of questioning. I mean, that's the point. Say it was slavery. Like that, conservatives all the time idealize the Civil War and the Confederate flag and all this other shit. But, you know, it was really about owning another person as property. And not everybody being able to own other people as property. Fuck that. No, it was just the rich white landowners in the South. That's who she's pandering to. The descendants of those people. And those people are all sitting in the crowd right fucking there. And they're all white Christian nationalists. And they're listening to this particular Republican because they know that she's going to pander to them.
Next question.
Yeah, next question. Let's go to a softer question. Like, hey, what kind of socks are you wearing today? Let's lob those in her direction. All right, now, this third news item for today is that Republicans suck, especially Tennessee Republican legislators. So I don't mean Republicans suck as in your common everyday Republican, because there are some common everyday Republican in this story. A good bit of them suck, but in this particular instance, they're not sucking too hard. But in any case, this week, Tennessee Republican lawmakers hit the mute button while some of their Republican constituents that suffered devastating losses at a school shooting demanded action on gun safety measures. These Tennessee parents had sent their children to the Covenant School, which experienced a mass shooting earlier this year. They hoped to influence the Republican lawmakers into passing some kind of gun safety measures. Sorry, just had to reorganize my shit right there. They hope to influence Republican lawmakers into passing some kind of gun legislation that would reduce the frequency and impact of these types of mass casualty events. Their pleas fell on deaf ears as Republican lawmakers decided to treat those rich white Tennessee voters as if they were a minority group and ignored their pleas for help. Some of the mothers that spoke out in a New York Times post said, "It was demoralizing to be talked down to see lawmakers who had sympathized with their pain in private still vote against them in the public." And then later the parents, talking to each other, asked one another, "Did you know that it was like this? How did I not know?" Not to be too insensitive about this subject, but if you had paid any kind of attention to the actual news instead of the fuck you news that conservatives love to listen to all the time, then you would know that because we've been talking about this issue since the early 2000s, if not before then. In all seriousness, though, I hate that what these parents went through. And I applaud them for trying to do something about it. But it doesn't seem to matter to Republican legislators. Not just in Tennessee, but every fucking where. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, white, or any other kind of ethnicity. Republican lawmakers simply don't care about you. They care more about guns than your lives. And so therefore, Republican lawmakers and most Republicans in general just fucking suck. And that's it for the news today. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Normally, I don't take such a political stance like on the channel here, but these particular situations I feel like really needed to be highlighted. So let me know what you think down below on each one of these stories. Let me know about the forcing Christ on kids. I know that a lot of Christians love to push back on atheists for wanting to protect the First Amendment to the Constitution. Do you think that this is something worthy to be fought for or not? Then the Civil War spin. Do you think that Nikki Haley truly thinks that the Civil War was about providing liberties and freedoms to people and ensuring the future of capitalism? Or do you think that it was really just about slavery? And then finally, do you think the Republicans suck? Just put it in the comments. Republicans suck. Because I feel like most Republicans, if not nearly all of them, they potentially suck about at least one thing. So let me know what you think. Next up, we're going to get to the response video. So I hope you guys are ready. If you're wondering what I'm drinking tonight, it's not an invisible glass, and it's definitely not Zelda related, but it is Chattanooga whiskey. I can't remember the exact like brand of it or whatever. It's the 111 proof Chattanooga whiskey. It's pretty good. I got a lot of ice in it, so. And I'm sipping slow. Anyways, Daniel M. David says good night. Thank you so much there, David. I hope you have a great weekend there, bud. A great New Year's and everything like that. I hope you had a great Christmas. I know that we weren't here last week for it or anything, but I hope you had a great Christmas there, buddy. Thank you so much there, Daniel, for sending in a super chat. You're awesome there, bud. It was kind of a weird place to bring up David saying good night after I ranted about Republicans for like half an hour. But in any case, so we're going to be going into the response video now. You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong. All right. Get to the next one.
One of the things.
Okay, so welcome to the main portion, the response portion. This first video that we're looking at from Red Pen Logic is going to be about the Christmas narrative. Is there a Is there a contradiction in the birth narrative of Jesus? We have Matthew's account, and in case you need reminding, in Matthew's account, Joseph and Mary are told that they were going to be having a child, and he was supposed to be named Jesus and all this other stuff. They go up and they're heading into Jerusalem, but they only make it to Bethlehem, and there they stay, have the kid, and then Herod finds out that, oh, look, the king of the Jews is supposed to be born and everything. And so Herod calls for the slaughter of all of the newborn and like every Jewish child under 2 years old. He calls for this mass slaughter of Jewish children. And so being warned of this, magically by angels, Joseph then swiftly whisks Mary and Jesus off to Egypt, where they stay for some period of time, at least until Herod Archelaus comes to power. And then once Herod Archelaus comes to power, they end up going back to Jerusalem, or they try to go back to Jerusalem, or to Jerusalem, but they end up going to Nazareth because they're afraid of Herod Archelaus, who is still in power. Now, this is heavily contrasted with the story of Luke. Luke has a rather unique idea in that a census was called by Quirinius, and Quirinius calls the census, and so they, being Joseph and Mary with child, have to travel in the wintertime, apparently, to go back to Bethlehem, Joseph's ancestral home, for whatever kind of fucking reason. And there in Bethlehem, they have the Jesus and everything like that, and then they continue on to Nazareth right after he's born. Or after they do all of the rituals and everything like that. Then they go off to Nazareth. And so these are two very different ideas about Jesus' birth. They happen in two very different times, with Matthew's version happening most likely in about 4 to 6 BCE, while the Luke story happens in 6 CE. So about 10 years later there is when it happens. And so there's these vast differences between the two, but Bart Ehrman in this clip is going to hyperfixate on one particular aspect of it. I have some comments about Bart and the way that he presents this and everything that we're going to go over here in a minute, but I just kind of wanted to get you guys centered to both of the birth narratives if you haven't reviewed them in a while, or you don't know about them or something like that. But that's basically the storyline for both of them. You can go and read it. I believe it's like Matthew 2 and Luke 1 and 2. Maybe it's Luke 2 and Matthew 1. I can't recall exactly. It's the first few chapters of both books. So you can go and review that if you would like to, but we're going to jump in with Bart Ehrman explaining the contradiction that he is hyperfixating on today.
One of the things I do with my students, they know the Christmas story, the wise men, and you get the shepherds, have them read Matthew, and just make a list of what happens in Matthew, this. Then I have them read Luke and make the same list for Luke. And is there anything that cannot be reconciled? It blows their minds. You realize, whoa, after Jesus is born, Mary has to make an offering in the temple. And then they go straight back to Nazareth, which is about 100 miles to the north up in Galilee. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus is born, and Joseph is warned that Herod is now going to try and kill the child. And so Joseph takes the family and goes down to Egypt, and they stay there till Herod dies. When they hear that Herod dies, they come back. They can't resettle in Bethlehem like they want. They resettle in Nazareth. If Matthew is right that they went down to Egypt for months or years or however long, how can Luke be right that they immediately returned to Nazareth?
And what is the answer to that question from
I
the
don't
perspective
know.
of a Christian?
I don't know. I mean, you have to make something up.
All right, so I have a bit of a problem here with Bart's answer to Alex O'Connor there, because I feel like if you're going to enter into this discussion where there's heavy debate over a topic, you should probably know your opposition's arguments. I know I try to do that, at least, especially with the mythicist argument. I have to deal with the opposition argument so much. And I also have to deal with the opposition argument to this particular aspect of it. And they have rather intricate ways in reconciling these two ideas. Now, Red Pen Logic's not going to go into too much detail here. He's just briefly going to overview one particular way to reconcile them. But I've heard various things for them to on ways that they can reconcile it, and I've actually discussed them here on the channel before. One of them is to actually report that Herod didn't actually die until much later, and that Quirinius was actually the governor of Syria much earlier than we know him to be. So there's a lot of fabricating of historical information that goes on with the counter arguments to this particular aspect of the birth narratives. But it's also important to keep in mind that there are more contradictions laid out in here than just this one thing. This is one particular aspect of it that is contradictory, but I would say that a stronger contradiction here is the fact that they occur in two different time periods. And that's what I probably would have highlighted if I had been given the question, like, what's a key contradiction in the birth narratives that show that either that one or the other has to be correct, if at all. And I would highlight the different time frames that they actually are existing in, because then what you enter into is you actually skirt around the issue that Tim is going to bring up in this video, and you actually get them to handle the historical information. And when they do that, what they end up having to do is fudge historical data. They have to make up or lie about dates in the past about when certain things happen. And they have to make up a whole bunch of information that we just simply don't have in the evidence. They have to fabricate sources. They have to do all of these other things in order to make their narrative fit. And so we're going to be hearing one particular way this narrative can fit, but Bart has made it incredibly easy for Tim to circumvent it, because all Bart has done is talked about, oh, this is the story, right? And so it's either one or the other, which is true, but I would say that's probably weaker than pointing out the intricacies of the dating of both of these narratives, rather than just the story elements of each narrative. Excuse me.
In this video, New Testament scholar Bart Ehrman offers Alex O'Connor an example of what he believes to be an irreconcilable contradiction in the Christmas accounts. Now, before we look at the specific supposed contradiction, let me make a general observation. Many alleged Bible contradictions arise from applying unnecessary assumptions or false expectations to the Bible.
You know, unnecessary assumptions and expectations, like expecting a coherent story. Or if these were actually eyewitness accounts, we should expect them to line up basically in the same ways. But we don't end up getting that. So I guess just expecting coherent historical documentation is one of those unusual or extreme circumstances that we're expecting out of the Bible. Fuck real history. Let's just do whatever in the fuck the Bible is doing.
In many cases, the alleged contradiction stems from the reader misunderstanding or even misrepresenting the author's original intent. Let me show you what I mean.
So the author's original intent is kind of interesting here. In case you guys haven't seen it, I've actually got an extended discussion with Dr. Aaron Adair on the channel that posted this past week, where we discussed the Bethlehem Star. The Bethlehem Star, as described by whoever wrote the Gospel of Matthew, actually has a luminescent object that is in our atmosphere, very close to the Earth, and it is actually centered right above and on top of the, I guess, the barn or manger that Jesus was born in. And so it literally has them finding the star, looking up and seeing the star hover directly over the house. So that's what it originally meant in it. But Christians nowadays, they invent different explanations for it. So my entire point in this is that it seems like Christians are the ones that are applying modern day notions on the original intent of the text. That's what I see. I just see the skeptical community taking the accounts at their word and analyzing them against the background of real history, and they definitely come out not good.
Ehrman challenges his students to read the Christmas accounts in Matthew and Luke and make a list of events for each. What you will find is some similarity, like Jesus being born in Bethlehem, of a virgin, and after his birth returning to Nazareth. But you will also find differences, like the Magi and the trip to Egypt in Matthew, and the shepherds and the trip to the temple in Luke. While Matthew and Luke give some different details, it's not clear that this amounts to a genuine contradiction.
It definitely is a genuine contradiction. And it's a genuine contradiction because in the Gospel of Matthew, he's telling a cohesive story where at least there's nothing explicitly said that indicates that he's either jumping around or he's leaving stuff out or anything like that. It seems like he's trying to tell a cohesive story that fits together and records the events of Jesus's birth. Luke is similarly trying to do that, except he begins his gospel by saying, "Oh, I'm a historian and I'm collecting this information for Theophilus. I'm collecting this shit for Theophilus. And, I've read all the accounts and I am jotting them all down because this is the real account of what happened. This is what actually happened." So I believe that the very beginnings of the Bible definitely sink Tim on this particular notion that this is not necessarily a contradiction. Both of them present it as if they're telling a linear story, and so if they are telling a linear story and they are actually telling us a story that literally happened as if it were history or eyewitness accounting, then we should see both of these accounts basically line up. But except for the small, minute places where they are similar, they deviate wildly from one another. So we shouldn't see this happen if they are actual either eyewitness accounts or at least people that are working off of real events that happened in history. Alex Baranowski says, your volume is much lower than the volume on the video you're responding to. Shit. Thank you so much there, Alex. I can tell now with my levels over there that I'm definitely not twerking on all cylinders, and so I will cut down my video sources thing a little bit here, and I'll try to fix this for the next time that we interrupt him.
Here's why. For this to be a genuine contradiction, the reader must assume two things. First, they assume that silence about an event is denial of an event. But this is a textbook example of an argument from silence.
Well, so an argument from silence here. An argument from silence can be valid. If you're expecting them to record specific information and they don't, then, that's a strong argument from silence. But there are also weak arguments from silence. So like saying, oh, well, a random general fuck named James didn't exist prior to Jesus. That would be an argument from silence, or an argument from ignorance, rather. But let's just say it's an argument from silence, in that there were no people named James recorded prior to Jesus was on the scene. That would be a weak argument from silence, because there's no way that you can actually infer, well, there were no Jameses. I can't think of anybody that was specifically recording, the name James or anything like that. I'm sure that we can find references to James prior to the time of Jesus. Obviously, I'm just using this as an example. But this is an actual strong argument from silence, because if Matthew and Luke are supposed to be recording the events that happened to Jesus, I feel like a surprise family trip to Egypt, like he was the fucking Griswolds at Christmas, I think it would actually be rather expected for Matthew to record that. Also, another thing, I would expect Luke to record, if he is a historian and if he is actually trying to record everything that happened to Jesus to the best of his abilities. He definitely knew about the slaughter of the innocents, but he chose not to report it. And he chose not to report this swift vacation to Egypt for a bit. He also managed to report a completely different time than Matthew. I feel like these are irreconcilable differences in our birth narratives. So I feel like you definitely need to account for that in some kind of way. Now, it's either these are poor historians that weren't actually recording history and they're recording a narrative, which is what most secular people would definitely agree to, or these are just straight up fictional accounts, which again, secular people would agree to. So, I mean, these are definitely irreconcilable differences in the Gospels.
Trying to reason from what a source does not say to the conclusion that something did not happen. Since Luke is silent on Jesus going to Egypt, the argument goes, therefore Luke denies Jesus went to Egypt.
Well, no, it's not that Luke is directly denying that. It's not that Luke is denying that Jesus went to Egypt or Jesus's family went to Egypt. It's that he doesn't record it. So we're not saying that Jesus didn't do that. We're saying that Luke, being the careful historian that he was, supposedly, recorded a bunch of shit about Jesus's birth, but yet he misses this. And he tells this linear story at the very beginning that obviously is meant to be understood in a linear fashion, and he doesn't talk about this particular action happening. So it's either this definitely did happen over here and happened in the exact same way, or this one happened. Which one is it? They're both supposed to be reporting exactly what happened to Jesus at his birth, but they are both contradictory. If Luke is supposed to be reporting everything that happened to Jesus and the trip to Egypt happened, then we should expect to see that in Luke, but we don't. Okay, it's not saying that Luke denies that he did it. We're just saying that Luke doesn't report the history accurately and therefore is not reporting what literally happened at Jesus' birth. So if you're out there making the conclusion that Luke denies that the Egypt trip happened, I would say that that's probably a wrong way to go about it. I think a more correct way to go about it is that Luke tells a cohesive story and he doesn't seem to know about this. So not saying that it didn't happen, but at the same time, he's contradicting what Matthew is saying. Now, they can both be completely off. They can both be pushing a fictional narrative, but they definitely both can't be right. So it's one or the other. Personally, I lean to they're both fucking with us. They're both just reporting bullshit. And they're not trying to report history. They're trying to build a theology. That's what I would say, that they're both bullshitting. The trip to Egypt never fucking happened. That's the side that I come out on, but it's not an argument from silence.
True, Luke doesn't mention the trip to Egypt, but what follows from that? The answer's simple. Nothing. Luke's silence is not a denial. Now I know what you're thinking, but Tim, Luke says when they had performed everything according to the law of the Lord, they returned into Galilee to their own town of Nazareth.
Listen for it. This is where the spin comes in. Much like Nikki Haley earlier when she was spinning the story about how the Civil War wasn't caused by slavery, or at least it was a minor cause. And the real cause was, something capitalism. And so freedom. And so much like Nikki Haley doing that spin on the Civil War, we're going to hear Tim actually spin this narrative so that, Luke definitely was talking about it. He just left it out. And he's vague here so that, you can still fit in this surprise trip to Egypt that the Griswolds made.
There it is. Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Nazareth. This leads to the second assumption. Second, the reader assumes Luke's describing immediate consecutive events. Luke does say that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus returned to Nazareth, and it says that it was after making sacrifices for ritual purification in Jerusalem.
Okay, hold on. I just, sorry, I gotta go. Bible Gateway. Jesus Christ. Bible Gateway has started with the ads, and it's just so fucking hideous. Like, it used to be a really good site with minimal ads, and now it's just like, ad, fuck, just go ahead and monetize every fucking thing about Jesus. All right. Matthew 1. Starts with a genealogy. Joseph accepts Jesus as his son. All right, so the actual birth narrative starts in chapter 2. Escape to Egypt. Let's see. Oh, wait, hold on. Shit, he's talking about Luke? I think he's talking about Luke. Okay, so it says, after the shepherds have come, it says this. Maybe, can I get this pulled up? Maybe? Just seems like pertinent to actually have it on the thing. Hold on. Okay, so we're starting with the shepherds returned glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. On the 8th day, when it came time to circumcise the child, he was named Jesus, the name the angel had given him before he was conceived. When the time came for the purification rites required by the laws of Moses, Joseph and Mary took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it was written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice in keeping with what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of doves or 2 young pigeons. They're going to sacrifice them. Now, there was a man in Jerusalem called Simeon, who was righteous and devout. He was waiting for the consultation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was on him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not die before he had seen the Lord's Messiah. Moved by the Spirit, he went into the temple courts. When the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him what was custom of the law required, Simeon took him into his arms and praising God and saying, blah, 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 you're the Lord. Yes, I'll suck your dick, little kid. The child's father and mother marveled at what was said about him. Blah, blah, blah. There was also a prophet, Anna, the daughter of Penuel, right? So there's a whole bunch of this patting the back of the child. When Mary and Joseph had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. Then the child grew and became strong, and he was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. So there's no room here. Like, literally, they go to the thing, they fulfill all of the law, right? And then immediately they go to the town of Galilee, or the town of Nazareth in Galilee. They had done everything required by the law of the Lord. When they had done everything. Not, they had done everything and then later they went on to, wherever. They legit, like, when they had accomplished everything, they went ahead and left. Like, I don't know how else to read that. Like, excuse my fucking literacy on this point, but that's how you fucking read it, okay, Tim? Now, let's go back to Matthew here. Because, obviously there's this, they're contesting, Tim is contesting that, the story in Luke doesn't necessarily rule out the story of Matthew. Well, let's read the story of Matthew, shall we? Let's see. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had happened, blah, blah, blah. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so I may go soon and worship him. Let's see. They heard the king was on his way and everything. They saw the star, was overjoyed, blah, blah, blah. They escaped to Egypt. Okay. So one thing they leave out is the Magi. Right? This is a pretty big part of it. Like, how are you going to not report that 3 Magi carrying presents came and spoke to this person who's supposed to be the mother of Jesus, and she's supposed to be a virgin, but 3 dudes show up with presents to congratulate her? Like, I feel like that's a bit shady to begin with, but we'll leave that to Maury Povich. Maria-ho. They escaped to Egypt. When they had gone, so directly after they had gone, right? That's just how you fucking read this, right? The angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said. Take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him. This is an important revelation to get, right? As we saw in Luke, the angel appeared to several people. It was like, hey, this guy right here is special. And so they went and they treated the kid special. Did that to a couple of people that reinforced the fact that Jesus was the Son of God and all this other bullshit. And then they don't mention the direct revelation from God to them that somebody's about to kill the child. What? It's either both of them are bullshit or one of them is bullshit and the other one's true. I bank on both of them being bullshit. Let's see. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. The death of Herod would have been 4 BCE. So Jesus was born in Matthew's gospel sometime before then, right? And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, oh, out of Egypt I called my son, which that's a reference to Moses. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus is supposed to be the new Moses, in case you don't know. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious and gave the order to kill all the boys in Bethlehem in its vicinity who were 2 years old and under. In accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi, blah, 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 blah. And then returned to Nazareth. After Herod died, the angel of the Lord appeared to them in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and mother, go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." So they immediately got up and went. But then, when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, who was too afraid to go there, having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, going to Nazareth, so that Jesus will be called Nazarene, as foretold in the scriptures, supposedly. Not really foretold in the scriptures, but, they reinterpreted the scriptures to mean that. So this story cannot be reconciled with Luke. It just simply can't.
The question is, was it immediately after or eventually after?
Well, if you want to ask that question, it reads, as we saw, as somewhat immediately after. At least there's this action that happens, and then this happened. Now, does that mean that there's a certain time frame that is specified? No, there's no certain time frame specified. But I feel like the absence of certain events happening and the way that they came to be in Nazareth, that is contradictory. If the slaughter of the innocents happened and they went to Egypt and then came back and went to Nazareth for, that particular reason, that should be mentioned in Luke, but it's not. Like, the whole reason as to why they ended up in Nazareth is contradictory, and that's the point. Zoomy Tomato says you forgot.
You have been blessed by Christ. Now go forth and suck my dong.
Zoomy Tomato says you forgot where Doctor Who took Jesus on the TARDIS. I don't know if that's part of the new Doctor Who or what, but I don't remember that part of Doctor Who. But I mean, I guess it's technically possible. It would be an argument from silence to say that it didn't happen. I'm just saying, Doctor Who taking Jesus somewhere, that's perfectly reasonable on the whole, that's an argument from silence aspect. You can't argue from silence there, Tim, on the Doctor Who hypothesis. Thank you, Zoomy, for providing that.
Well, Matthew seems to hint that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus had a longer stay in Bethlehem, possibly even 2 years. This might explain why Herod ordered the killing of all the male children in Bethlehem 2 years and under.
Which happened after they left. I mean, it was obviously, like, that order was given after they had already left Bethlehem. So it was, I don't know when after. Like, I don't know if it was 2 years or what, but I kind of feel like it happening after they had already left for Egypt kind of sends a signal of, at least some kind of immediacy that they left, Jerusalem, prior to at least the order being carried out. At least the way that we read it in the actual story is that, Herod is furious and he orders the slaughter of the innocents. Angel appears to Mary and Joseph so that they get out of town before the slaughter happens. I mean, it seems rather immediate.
So can these two accounts be reconciled? Yeah, and I don't think it's terribly hard to see how. Mary and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem. Jesus is born and the shepherds visit.
Okay, the shepherds visit. But what about the Magi? Okay, the Magi, they also visited before like any of the cleansing rituals and all that had been performed in the temple and everything like that. Like before all of that, the Magi come. There's no Magi in this first part. There's shepherds, which is in Luke. There's shepherds, but there are no Magi. Where are the Magi? You would think that Magi showing up would be part of like the story for Luke, but what fuck ever.
40 days after Jesus' birth, they go to the temple in Jerusalem to fulfill the law. Then they return to their home in Bethlehem. They meet the Magi. Then, after being warned in a dream about Herod's plot, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus flee to Egypt to escape.
Hold on a second. Did you notice the little trickery that he played there? I don't know. It's very subtle. But he says that, the shepherds come when Jesus is a baby in the manger, right? And then 40 days after that, they go and they fulfill all the stuff in Jerusalem as far as the laws for a baby, right? And then they come back and they meet the Magi at their home. I know, sorry. At their home. At their home? Their home was a manger. They gave birth in a manger, like in a manger being like where they keep cattle and shit. That's their home. They go back to home in Bethlehem. Joseph didn't have a fucking home in Bethlehem. They had a fucking shed. It was like a woodshed. It was a barn, basically, is how it's described. So, like, what the fuck are you talking about here, home? Like they bought a barn and they lived in the barn for 40 days or more? Are you fucking serious? I like the wordplay that this motherfucker is playing on here.
Finally, when Herod is dead, they begin to travel back to Judea, to Bethlehem. But after being warned in another dream, they go to Nazareth instead. This series of events is totally consistent with both accounts.
With the exception that neither account actually states this. Neither account reconciles with each other. And if Luke is a historian and he found contradictions in his sources, then he really should have discussed how he was going to handle those contradictions. Like if Luke had a source that gives us Luke's version of it, but he's also obviously found Matthew's version, because we definitely know he had Matthew's version, then he should definitely tell us, oh, I found this other version and I picked this version because it's better for these reasons. We don't get that from Luke. Or whoever wrote Luke. We don't get that from the Gospel of Luke. All we get is dudes saying, oh, I've collected all the information and I'm compiling all of it down for Theophilus. That's it. And so these are not reconcilable at all. Like, you reconciling them, twisting them in a way to where they could fit, is not them actually fitting. You're twisting the material and making them fit. That just simply doesn't work as far as historical sources go, nor does it work for the storytelling aspect of the Bible. Anyways, that's it for this video. Let's see, we do have another video that we're going to be covering of Tim's. Let me see. It seems unnecessary. So this next video, Tim is going to be defending the Bible and Christianity against claims that it's very toxic and abusive. So we're going to be looking into the toxicity of Christianity next.
So in abusive relationships, the abuser will break down the victim's self-worth and self-esteem and make them feel broken and worthless without them, so they'll be dependent on the abuser. Yeah, that's really horrible that people do that. Right? So then when a church teaches you that you're born broken and a sinner and worthy of eternal punishment, it's true. We're all sinners unworthy of what Jesus did for us. I'm going to start from the beginning. You let me know where I lost you.
Yeah. You lost the other person in that conversation when you mentioned Christianity and churches and everything like that. Christians have a massive blind spot for their own church. But I totally agree with this creator, by the way, because the whole concept in the Bible of original sin and sin in general is a way to toxically form this codependent relationship with God. And throughout the Old Testament, and in case you guys don't know, we do have the Old Testament that both KC and I have read through here on the channel. You can go and you can listen to that and you can see how toxically abusive it is and how God creates a codependent relationship with humans and basically shames them into worshiping him. You can see that throughout the Old Testament. Churches nowadays, they definitely preach this. They definitely preach that you are a broken person, that you need Jesus in order to be a good person, in order to have everlasting life. this particular aspect of Christianity is always going to be toxic. It's always going to be an abusive relationship, because that's what Christianity requires in order for people to adhere to it. A lot of religions that are popular and are practiced now require toxic and abusive relationships in order to stay a viable alternative to other religions. They have to convince you that you need them instead of them needing you. So yes, this is a codependent, toxic relationship. And I've been in my fair share of those types of relationships, so I know one when I see one, and I fucking see one in the Bible. And looking back on my past as a Christian, I definitely fucking see it in what I was taught as a Christian. So I'm interested to hear how Tim Barnett can spin this, the spin zone. We're in the spin cycle now with Tim Barnett, and we're going to find out how Christianity really isn't all that toxic.
Let's start with what this content creator gets right. In an abusive relationship, the abuser often does do the things described to break down, manipulate, and control the victim. This kind of thing is horrible, and where the church has engaged in this kind of behavior, we need to call it out. No question there.
Oh, okay. Well, the church has been engaging in it since, fucking Paul. As far as the church goes, Christianity from the very beginning, Judaism from the very beginning, all of it is toxic codependency to the T. Like it's very much toxic codependency. So, I mean, sure, call it out, say that it's shitty, but you at least have to recognize that the core of your theology here is toxically codependent on both Jesus and God, and I guess the Holy Spirit. However that fucking Trinity thing works out, I really don't know. I still don't understand. I tried to have KC explain it to me, and I still don't fucking get it. I'm totally fucking confused by the Trinity.
The problem is, this doesn't accurately represent Christianity. Let me show you. First, Christianity doesn't teach we're worthless or try to break us down. On the contrary,
I completely disagree, especially if we read the Old Testament, because if you read the Old Testament, you'll see that God very specifically lays out to the Israelites that unless you are worshiping me, I will fucking kill you because you don't matter. You don't matter to me, and so therefore it doesn't matter if you live. And so I'm going to have you killed because you don't matter. And that's if you're not worshiping me. If you end up worshiping not only me, but other gods as well, I'll still fucking kill you because I have to be the number one in your life. That is the core of Christian theology as well as core of Jewish theology, at least contained in the Old Testament, which would include the Pentateuch and all this other stuff. All of that is toxic codependency. God spends the entire Old Testament building a toxic codependent relationship, demonstrating, literally in the Bible, in the Old Testament, literally demonstrating that unless you have God in your life and unless you're praising God, you do not matter. God has literally created a sarlacc pit in the middle of the fucking desert, opened it up so that it could swallow whole a whole bunch of Israelites because they got a little bit of lippy. They got a little bit lippy. And there's multiple instances of that happening. God allowed the Israelites to get stuck in slavery because they ended up submitting themselves to the Egyptians, and of course they were also worshiping Egyptian pantheon of gods and all this other stuff, and it wasn't until of course God revealed himself to Moses and everything like that. But my point is that throughout the Old Testament, it's a toxic codependent relationship that God demonstrates with his actions, and he literally says on a few occasions that you are lusting over those other people like donkeys or horses with giant dicks, and I'm going to punish you for it. He also punishes the Israelites for allowing other people to practice other religions. So, yes, God definitely creates a codependent relationship with the people.
It teaches all human beings are a special creation. We are made in the image of God, which means we're intrinsically valuable and worthy of dignity.
Well, maybe the Christian faith does say that we're created in the image of God. But there's one key aspect that he's leaving out here. It's that God puts it on us for violating his opinion. Like he was saying, don't eat from this tree. And of course, Adam and Eve, being basically like newborn babes, not knowing what right and wrong is, because they literally did not have the knowledge of right and wrong, did not know that it was wrong to disobey God. And so, of course, they were convinced, because they were fucking naive, to eat from the tree of knowledge. And so God automatically puts the onus on humans, the onus on humans. And God could have magically put that tree of knowledge somewhere where we couldn't get to it. In the story. I don't think it actually happened. In the story, God chose to put the tree exactly where he knew that Eve would be tempted to eat from the fucking tree. And then, of course, Adam is convinced by the naked girl that's standing in the middle of the perfect garden there. He's convinced to eat from the fruit too. God knew this was going to happen. And so he basically set up a situation where we would guilt ourselves into senselessly worshiping him. That's a toxic codependent relationship. That is classical manipulation. If I set something up so that, like let's say my son gets hurt doing something that I don't want him to do, and then, he realizes, oh, I should have listened to dad, and then I keep doing those kinds of things, then that creates a toxic codependent relationship where I am manipulating him because I am setting those things up so that it will drive him towards me, so that he will uncritically do what I want. That's a toxic codependent relationship.
Moreover, this value isn't something you can lose like your car keys. You are valuable no matter what your age, race, religion, abilities, gender, or sexuality.
That is so hilarious to me, considering what the Bible says, because the Bible, if people have intrinsic value, if God loves people, Jesus loves people, regardless of their religion, why is it that God not only kills people of other religions, has Israelites kill people of other religions? God killed all of those innocent children in Egypt in order to get his people out of Egypt, when he could have simply fucking bewitched them away from Egypt. Wiggle the nose and everything happens. You could do that. God does all of those things, and you're going to sit here and try to convince us that, to God, everybody is intrinsically valuable, regardless of your religion or sexuality. Does he not remember Leviticus? In Leviticus 19, whatever in the fuck, it says that gay people should be stoned to death, and if they get stoned to death, then it's their own fault. Instead of it being God's fault because he's commanding it, it's the LGBTQ members' fault because they were part of the LGBTQ community. This is not God loving everybody regardless of sexuality or religion or anything like that, or considering every single human being to be intrinsically valuable. God literally calls for the Israelites to go and kill other groups of people. Not just kill, genocide them. He tells them to go out and utterly destroy all of them, which means to completely wipe them out. How is that intrinsically valuable? This is just bullshit coming from Tim. All of this is bullshit. He's twisting the Bible to say different things than it actually does. And he's banking on this whole idea that the people that are watching him are not going to go and read and check. Because I bet you, if you go, you read, you check about what God actually does in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you will find that he is a right shithead. He's a shithead. He is.
You didn't earn your value and it can't be taken away. Now I know what you're thinking, but Tim, doesn't Christianity also teach that we're all sinners deserving of punishment? This leads to the second point. Acknowledging that someone is a sinner, they've broken God's law, and warning them of the consequence is not the same thing as an abuser breaking down a victim's self-worth to make them feel bad so you can control them. Let me ask.
It's really funny that he's like, oh, there's this aspect of Christianity that's definitely toxic. And then he turns around and is like, but it's not really toxic, because while it looks and sounds and is exactly the same as this toxic abuser over here, God is really not a toxic abuser. For one thing, sin is a made-up idea. It's a made-up concept by the Israelites in order to convince people that they need to not sin and appease God, because otherwise God's going to fuck you up. He's going to kill you, right? That's the original concept of sin and the punishment from God that happens in the Old Testament. You get fucked up. Sin against God, you immediately die. Or at least maybe not immediately die, but eventually you, your family, all of your grandchildren, they will all fucking die, okay? That's the message from the Old Testament. And then in the New Testament, it's like, well, we went a little bit too far. So, we're just going to kill this one more guy. And then, everything's going to be fine. But the entire concept of original sin, which is a later Christian creation, by the way. But the entire concept of sin in not only the Hebrew Bible, but also the Christian Holy Bible, is a toxic concept, because it directly places the onus on humans. God blames the humans for doing it. It's the humans' fault for committing sin against God, which is just God's opinion. Committing sin is just doing something that offends God. Like, it's something that God doesn't want you to do, and that's it. And so it creates this toxic codependent relationship. You have sin because God has laid out these arbitrary fucking rules that he wants you to follow. You don't follow those rules, and so you get thrown into a fiery pit of hell for the Christians. You get immediately killed in Judaism. Rather immediately. Like I said, it's either immediately or your entire family, grandchildren, and descendants on down the line, they all get killed. So, you get killed, right? Or you get thrown into a fiery pit of hell for eternity. This inherently creates a toxic, codependent relationship where you are manipulated into following what this psychopathic God says. There's no way around this. This is a simple thing. No amount of Tim being like, yeah, God sounds exactly like a toxic, abusive, codependent, boyfriend or husband, but he's not really, because he's God.
Ask you something. Is a doctor an abuser because she tells her patient they have a disease and without a cure, they will certainly die?
That's right, honey. That's fucking information. That's like doing tests and reporting back to somebody, huh? Yeah, it's not a threat. It's not like the doctor's like, now listen, my results here say that unless you watch Die Hard every Christmas and agree that it's a Christmas movie, I'm going to give you cancer and you're going to die. That's not what happens. I guess technically it's not like God automatically just assumes, oh, no, now you have sin. You have sin from the beginning. So it's a lot like being born, and whilst you're sliding out of the vaginal canal, the doctor's like, if you don't do exactly what I say, you're going to die at some point in your life, and I'm not going to tell you when. So you might as well just follow whatever I say all the time anyways. God made it that way, but he didn't have to. I agree. You're right, honey. He did have to make it that way. God set up humanity to fail in the story. God knew humanity was going to fail. And then God also blamed humanity when humanity failed in that particular aspect. Yeah, it's totally fucking stupid. It's definitely toxic. It's codependent. It's abusive. It's all of those things.
Of course not. The doctor isn't trying to hurt them. The doctor's trying to heal them.
Except God is the one that lays sin on us. God is the one that created sin. The doctor didn't fucking create cancer.
It's not abusive to give an accurate yet deadly diagnosis someone doesn't like. Sin is like a spiritual sickness that requires a cure.
Sin is not a spiritual sickness. Of course, me being secular and a heathen and all this other things, I don't believe in all of that kind of bullshit. So I don't believe in spiritual sickness. But even if sin, even if you could somehow characterize sin as some kind of sickness, it's a made up sickness. It's a lot like if, let's say you had a doctor and he was like, Flubbity Nuggets is infesting all of us and we're all going to die at some point in our life if we don't agree that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And Floppity Nuggets, there's a little pill for Floppity Nuggets. It's a blue pill. Well, I'm saying the whole Die Hard thing because I feel like it's a ridiculous thing to require. Regardless of your opinion, that's wrong about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, I feel like it's a ridiculous thing to require people to admit it and it just not be a difference of opinion, much like a lot of the things that God states are his opinion, and if you transgress them, it's a sin. So like whenever you think about, you know, what is a sin, think about whether or not you disagree that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. If you disagree that it's a Christmas movie, then you've committed a sin and you deserve to burn in hell forever. Casey's going to burn in hell. I'm not. You see how that works? You can just make up any kind of flippity nugget thing, and it's not like you could take a blue pill for your floppity nugget, and you know, you just have floppity nuggets infesting you, and you're going to burn in hell one day for thinking that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. So, you know, you see how that works? Replace sin with floppity nuggets. Huh? No. Anytime you hear sin, you just replace it with floppity nuggets, and it really conveys like how ridiculous the notion is. That's my point.
Jesus makes this connection in Luke 5. When asked why he eats and drinks with sinners, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy that need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance."
Well, I mean, as far as I recall from my Christian-y days, we're all sinners in the eyes of God. Ho! I feel like that relates to what he's saying. Because, like, if we're all sinners, then Jesus should eat with all of us regardless. And, I guess maybe that's kind of a commentary on how dumbass the disciples were, but that's for a different video.
Now, is Jesus being abusive by calling people to repent of their sins? No.
Well, no, that's not the claim. The claim isn't, oh, Jesus tells you to repent of your sins and therefore that's abusive. That's not. The whole setup for the sin aspect is the abusive part. God was there for that. If Jesus is God, then Jesus did that. That's the part that's toxically abusive. And then him saying, you know, you need to get right with God and stop sinning. That is a continuation of the abuse. It's not that that is abusive in and of itself. It's that it's that the entire concept is abusive in general.
Sinners need Jesus like the sick need a doctor. By the way, not telling someone the truth about their disease would be wrong, and keeping the cure from a person would be abusive.
I would agree about this if you were a doctor, you had test results that showed that somebody had cancer and you didn't tell them that they had cancer. That would be bad. But at the same time, if you know, your pastor comes to you and your pastor, you know, creates in his mind this imaginary sickness, and then he doesn't tell you about the imaginary sickness that he's created in his mind that he's attributed to you, you're not being hurt by that. That's him keeping his fucking opinion to himself. And honestly, I feel like religious people probably need to do a little bit more of that. Keep your fucking opinions to yourself as far as it concerns other people. in this particular context. Like in the context that we're talking about, keep your fucking opinions to yourself. I don't need you telling me that I'm living in sin and I need to repent and find Jesus. I don't need to find Jesus. Found Jesus like when I was 3 or whatever in the fuck. My parents told me about Jesus, and then I figured out that you know, Jesus didn't actually exist, like as far as the Jesus of the Bible goes. Not trying to make a mythicist kind of argument here, but I'm just saying the biblical Jesus doesn't exist. The Jesus that I've been taught about for so many years doesn't exist. And so, like, I just... this video pisses me off so much. Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably because of my past with toxic codependent individuals and toxic codependent relationships. For somebody to blatantly deny or to deny blatant toxic codependent relationship traits in their own religion and spin it so that they advocate for the abuser, that is a trigger for me. Like, I don't use the word trigger all that often, but that right there is definitely a fucking trigger for me.
How unloving would it be to pretend a sick person isn't sick? Magician and atheist Penn Jillette made a similar point in a video a few years ago.
And I've always said, you know, that I don't respect people who don't proselytize. I don't respect that at all. If you believe that there's a heaven and hell and people could be going to hell or not getting eternal life or whatever, and you think that, well, it's not really worth telling them this because it would make it socially awkward. And atheists who think that people shouldn't proselytize, just leave me alone, keep your religion to yourself. How much do you have to hate somebody to not proselytize? How much do you have to hate somebody to believe that everlasting life is possible and not tell them that? I mean, if I believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that a truck was coming at you and you didn't believe it, that truck was bearing down on you, there's a certain point where I tackle you. And this is more important than that.
So I disagree with Penn Jillette on this, obviously, because I definitely want religious people to just shut the fuck up, keep their opinions to themselves about my afterlife or where I might go after I die or anything like that, or what they think I need to do. Unless I directly ask your ass about it, I don't want to fucking hear about it, okay? And so I disagree with Penn because I feel like it's a bit of a false analogy here. It's a false analogy. I know not all analogies are perfect, but I feel like this is presenting it in a completely different way. Because imagine yourself, close your eyes, close them. Imagine yourself on a sidewalk in a city, right? And not San Francisco. That place smells like shit. Probably because of all the people taking a shit on the sidewalk and also dogs everywhere shitting on sidewalks for some reason. So you're on a sidewalk, right? You're looking right, you look left, and you do the 3 thing, right? You right, left, right again, and then you're good to walk, right? And there's nothing there. Nothing at all there. You know there's nothing there. There's not even a wind. There's nothing going by whatsoever. And you go to walk off the curb, right? And then somebody's yanks you back by the neck, pulls you back out. It's like, oh man, did you see that truck that was coming by? And you look back, right? And you go, right, left, right. No, there's no fucking truck. What are you fucking doing? Like, you know, and there's still no truck. And then you go to walk off of the curb again, only to have another person yank you back from trying to move about your fucking day unhindered. And he's like, oh man, did you see that truck? And you're like, fucking no, I didn't. I looked 3 times already. No, I didn't fucking see it. And so you go to walk off again and the process repeats on ad infinitum, whatever. I mean, that's what we're actually dealing with here. It's not like this is the first time anybody has heard about Jesus, especially if you're in the United States. It's a rare sight to find somebody that has not heard about Jesus or been proselytized to in some kind of way. In fact, I feel like if you would stop fucking talking about Jesus, putting Jesus up on billboards, and stop teaching kids about Jesus, within one generation of there being no proselytizing of Christianity, Christianity would effectively die. Exactly, honey. That's why they keep doing it, and that's why they cherish it when other people outside of the faith say, oh, definitely proselytize to me, because I want you to if you really think that there's a hell. We've all heard about it. We've all been yanked back at least once and told about this proverbial truck that's about to hit us. We've all heard this stuff, and we've all done the due diligence. Well, I can't speak for everybody. I would say most people that I've encountered have done the due diligence, looked both ways, did the 3 times thing, and have not seen evidence of this car. So we can hear it, right? We can hear the message. We don't need you proselytizing about it because it's fucking everywhere.
This content creator fails to accurately represent Christianity. There's a huge difference between viciously breaking down a person and telling them falsehoods to make them feel bad so you can control them on the one hand.
I like how he describes a Christian God, but acts like, oh, this definitely isn't the Christian God. Like, that's bullshit. He knows that's bullshit. He's got to know that what he's saying is bullshit. That this God isn't toxically abusive. Like, he's sitting here describing the Christian God and acting like somehow the Christian God isn't a toxic bastard.
And on the other, diagnosing a real problem that people have in order to offer a solution that will bring healing.
Have I mentioned that I don't really like Tim Barnett? Well, heathens, that's going to be it for tonight. I really appreciate everybody that's done a super chat. I appreciate everybody in the mafia that has commented, which we are about to get to, and everybody watching right now. This has been a great year. I've really enjoyed this year. We're going to start strong next year. Well, we're going to have a little bit of there at the very beginning of this coming year. We're probably not going to have a few live streams for most of January, but they're right in the middle of January and on. We're going to be having regular Friday night streams and everything like that. So I hope that you'll subscribe if you're not already. As far as Tim's videos go, for the Christmas video, he's just bullshitting everybody. The two narratives in the Gospels about Jesus' birth can't be reconciled with one another. They just simply can't. Tim's attempt to just shows how much he's willing to twist the biblical stories in order to make them fit. And for this video, I would say, and for this last video, I would say that Tim is just woefully wrong about God being toxically codependent and abusive. Because it's plainly obvious throughout the Old Testament as well as the New Testament that this concept of sin in and of itself is abusive. It's manipulative, and it creates a toxic, codependent relationship. So he's just simply wrong about it. And I've already ranted and raved as much as I can about how toxic and abusive Christianity is. It's a fundamental aspect of Christianity. It's something that you can't get away from. No amount of false dichotomies or false analogies will, persuade me away from that position, because inherently Christianity is toxically codependent. But in any case, this is the last stream before your birthday. Are you mentioning it for a certain reason? Yeah. All right, here we go. It's going to be like, we won't have another stream before Casey's birthday, so we got to do it now. You ready, hon? I'm ready. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Casey. Happy birthday to you. Something more on Channel 4. Many more on Channel 4. Many more on Channel 4. That's something that her aunt sings to her a lot. Anyways, happy birthday there, hun. And I hope that everybody watching has a lovely new year. And we'll see you back in the new year, starting fresh with 2024. We're about to go to the Skeptic Mafia comments. So if you will, please go down below. Let me know what you thought in the comment section, or just let me know in the live stream right now if you're watching live. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens. But wait, don't go, because we have the Skeptic Mafia comments that we got to go through. Let's see. Am I gaming tomorrow? I don't know. Huh? You won't be here? Oh yeah, you got a car thing. Didn't. Oh. Okay. I mean, tomorrow would be a good time to start my Spider-Man 2 playthrough, huh? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll get that set up tonight, but Spider-Man 2, I guess tomorrow on the gaming channel, which I'll actually just put it in the chat. GE Plays. If you want to go over there, you want to watch me play through the Spider-Man game. I just got done with Miles Morales, and that was an awesome game. I got real emotional at the end. I tried to not really show that it got me emotional because it's just a game, but it was pretty emotional at the end of that game. But we're going to be starting Spider-Man 2, which features both Miles Morales and Peter Parker. So we will be doing that tomorrow morning, and I'll get that set up right after this stream. Let me get to my posts. Yeah, we don't have too many comments to go through tonight, so we'll get through this pretty quickly. Well, that didn't work like I wanted it to. Okay. Let's see. Daniel M says, I didn't see the video. My mom went in for screening and they found lumps on her thyroid. Oh shit. I'm sorry there, Daniel. They did more tests and we're waiting on the results. She may have gotten them by now. The doctor told her that it is not in her lymph nodes. She is quite concerned, and that worries me too. She already had cancer in her uterus. The week before Christmas, she found a card from when I was around 4 in another grade school picture that she gave me. It was pretty upsetting, being that she kept that for 38 years and was making sure I got it. Hopefully we get good news. It's uncertain at this point, though. I really hate that there, Daniel. That I hope everything's okay there, bud. Thank you, hon. I hope everything's okay. And be sure to let me know. I know I missed a call from you recently, so just, whenever you find out, feel free to call me. Doubtful Form says, hello, just commenting in the right place. So Jesus' family fleeing threats of death was worth skipping? That's a good point. I feel like that's a big point to skip if you're going to skip something. Oh, and then we've got Zoomy, who says, well, I had a really good ASCII, but it won't fit in this format, so here, have some Sanic instead. I see the Sanic now. Sanic's awesome. Because even Sanic had to go really fast to get the hell away from these idiots. And if you want to get away from these idiots as well, be like Sanic and go really, really fast down to the like button and go ahead and give it a nice big lick for Sanic. In fact, lick the subscribe button as well. Just lick your entire phone. Make sure every corner and every square inch of it. Oh, and if you've got a Fiverr just burning a hole in your wallet, go ahead and join the Skeptic Mafia. We've got perks. Insert generic shilling and perks here. 2024, we will hopefully be able to close out the Bible. So we got the Daily Bible podcast, but also we've got the Skeptic Mafia podcast that posts specifically for the Skeptic Mafia that we will also be doing regularly. So definitely subscribe for that. But you also got the emojis in the chat that are also very helpful, as you see with Trickster right here, putting in his comment there, their comment right there. And by now, you know the mantra, Casey is always right. I will listen to Casey. Casey is God. And as always, eat your goddamn fruits and veggies and drink some fucking water, you heathens. Tomato out. I got my water. I mean, I'm drinking whiskey right now, but I do have water right here. It's protein water because my stomach's still 6 ounces. Which I'm very proud to say, I don't know if you guys can tell. I've been told that you could tell pretty, like, you know, KC and everything like that, but I'm actually down like, 60 pounds now? I'm down over 60 pounds from what I was at the very beginning of this year. And I doubt that you could tell that I've lost weight, but I've lost a substantial amount of weight. Part of that's due to the surgery, but also I lost a good bit of it prior to surgery. But I'm pretty happy. Like, that's a good 2023 like win for me. I'm the lightest that I've been weight-wise in like 10 years. Probably more than 10 years, yeah. So, anyways, Trickster's next. This guy starts out by saying that the ones finding contradictions in the Bible are doing so by using assumption, then uses the rest of the video to use nothing but assumption to make his point. This was not the best way for him to present his argument. I agree there, Trickster. And then, of course, Mr. Hanachek just says, "What the fuck?" Thank you, Mr. Hanachek. And thank all of you heathens out there for joining me today. I really appreciate y'all joining me for this last stream of the year. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate you guys. If you will, please leave us a comment down below in the comments section and everything. It'll really help us out with the channel, getting the channel seen and everything like that. So definitely go down there and check that out. And I guess I will just see you heathens later. Next live stream is going to be January 19th. And I believe that week, I'm actually a host on Skep Talk on January 15th. So you'll get plenty of live streaming from me, but it won't be until January 15th, and the 19th is our first live stream back. So I hope to see y'all then, and I guess I will talk to you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.